and that's what we're trying to teach kids. Like, you can control you.
Right.
You can be honest. You can be respectful. You can be obedient. You can be diligent. Those are all character traits. And when they get in life, when they apply for a job, I would say even you, when you apply for a job, you can find people. If you find somebody they have all the right test scores and they have all the knowledge and the skills, but they don't have the character, you're probably not going to hire them.
Right.
If they won't show up, if they're not dependable, if they're not honest, it's like, okay, you might know how to do roofing, but I can't use you.
Right. Welcome to this edition of the Whole Truth Podcast. Today, our special guest is Mr. Scott. He is the headmaster over at Heartland Christian School, which my kiddos get the privilege to be part of. But I just wanted to bring in Mr. Scott, have a conversation with him. I'm going to let him introduce himself, and then we're just going to talk about the school, kind of what's going on over there. There's some exciting things.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. My name is Scott. As he already mentioned, my wife is Christina. We have 3 children, Conrad, Reagan, and Mackenzie. My oldest 2 are now at college, and my daughter, Mackenzie, is an 11th grader. So I'm almost at that empty nest stage, man. It's going to happen. In fact, this next year, if it happens, my oldest will be graduating with his bachelor's. My second will be graduating with his AA. And then my daughter will be graduating from high school. So I'm not sure what I'll do after that.
What are they graduating? What's the older 2 graduating
oldest
from?
one, he wants to be a physician's assistant.
Awesome.
So he blew out his ACL twice, and in the process of all those surgeries through high school, got interested in medicine. And my second is he's into sales and business. He's a salesman.
Yeah. And
then, like I said, with Mackenzie, we're still figuring it out. So anyway, a little bit about me. And I've been in education for now. Never dreamed I'd be in education, honestly. Never dreamed. It was not on my radar growing up. And got a job in Cincinnati when I lived there with an inner city. It was a behavior school.
Okay.
Called the Children's Home of Cincinnati. And in that process, God started working in my heart and put a love for the kids. Actually, I fell in love with the kids. And that kind of started the process for education.
So let's give a little history back on Heartland, location, kind of all that, because there's still a lot of people, even in Rushville, it's like, where do your kids go?
Sure. So we are in Newcastle, Indiana, 3340 West County Road, 100 South, to be exact. 3, which runs right through Newcastle. We're about 3.5 miles off of that, and 38. A lot of people know where 38 is. We're 1 mile south, 100 miles south off of that. And, that's where we're located.
Kind of tell the backstory of like how Heartland came about, because that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2013, there was 5 business owners got together, and we met there in that facility, which the facility is a lot bigger. We've grown a lot. We've done a lot of expansion. But where we started, we met in that facility. And John Sproles, who's now the Henry County Sheriff, he owned that. It was a gymnasium, 2 classrooms on the end. Wasn't 2 classrooms then, just 2 rooms. He owned that facility. He called 4 other businessmen and myself. We met that summer, said, hey, we're thinking about the idea of starting a Christian school. What do you think? And I tried to honestly talk them out of it. I was like, guys, y'all don't want to do this. It is, y'all are for-profit businesses. What you're talking about starting is a non-for-profit. In 2013, Christian schools were not doing well. Right. Many were closing, in America specifically. So long story short, they're like, well, would you at least pray about it? And I said I would. So I left. I didn't live in Newcastle. Went home, me and my wife. We knew we were moving. We actually lived in Muncie at the time. I lived in Cincinnati for 6 years. We lived in Muncie. We knew we were moving. I had several job opportunities I was looking at. So in that 2 weeks, I went to all these opportunities, and just none of them fit right. We prayed a lot. In that process, we felt like, you know what? I think God wants us to do this. I also got advice from people, my mentors, and Like, okay. And so we're like, okay. So 2 weeks later, we came back and said, I think God wants us to do this. So literally at that moment, that second meeting, they're like, okay. John's like, I have this gym and these rooms. This is a place. You got to have a place to start. He said, you can use this place, and we'll see what happens. And we ended up with, I think, 3 teachers and 26 students that first year. And John and I, he'd come in and we laugh about it now, but John's like, do you think we could ever get to 50 students? And I always tell people, being the great man of faith that I am, I was like, probably not. Probably not. No, probably not going to happen. We're in the middle of a cornfield. Anyway, by our third year, I think our second year we had around 37. Our third year we had 60. We were packing out those rooms. And then we started the building expansion. As soon as we had part of it done, so another room would open up, we had 88. As soon as the next room, you jump to 100, 114, 125, 45, 85. Yeah. So the space we have now was designed thinking we would triple. Like I said, when we designed it, we were around 60. We're like, let's triple our size. We could hit 180. We thought that would be good till Jesus comes back. Yeah. And I think right now we got about 230 something in that space. So we're very, very packed. But. And
the exciting thing is, have you guys officially broken any ground on the...
We have not officially. In that, there's so many stories. I call them God moments. I mean, there are just so many God moments all along this journey. We're in our 12th year now. Like I didn't say that, but we are in our 12th year. But in that process, of course, we become fully accredited. That was a huge thing. In that process, there was 10 acres of land behind it. Mm-hmm. There's a whole story there, how God worked amazingly beyond we ever imagined. That's all bought and paid for. We've done a lot of, I think we've done probably $30,000, $40,000 worth of moving dirt and stuff, starting, getting some trees cut out of the way, etc. Most of it was a field, but not all of it. And we now have all that 10 acres all bought and owned, paid for, no debt on that. And looking to build another facility on there. And then the facility we have now would end up being more elementary. Mm-hmm. And then that would be probably middle and high school, wherever that break is. Depends how many students God sends us.
So what phase are you on for fundraising right now in a new facility?
Technically, we're about phase 4.
Okay.
Phase 1, some of the beginning phases were smaller, and they were finishing up things that we needed to do where we were. Like phase 1 was like $100,000, but it was getting our parking lot paved and stuff like that, which was what we already had for the first facility. Phase 2 was, like I said, those were smaller phases. The phase we're on now, phase 4, is about $1 million phase. The whole project is probably a 4, 5. You would even know. Those numbers vary based on product and but it could easily be a $4 to $5 million product. Counting where we have and everything that's come in, we're over $1 million towards that.
Okay.
So we still got a ways to go, but our plan and prayer is that we would be breaking ground within the next couple months. So it's not to actually raise all $5 million and then break ground. It's to break ground, and then we keep raising as we build. Of course, we'd love to be debt free when it's done.
Right.
But at the same time, we have to decide what we do with all the students wanting to come in, and do we keep saying no and put them on waiting lists, or do we again kind of step out in faith and make this happen?
What is the capacity of once the new building's built? It
would push us really, between the two, we'd be able to hold around 500.
Okay.
Yeah, because in that new facility, there's a bigger gym. There's just so many things we do at Heartland that we have a gym, which you've been there, and because your kids are there, we do band concerts in there, choir concerts in there, and whatever. It's just we have literally maxed that. We used to do graduations in there. We can't do that anymore. Even this last week, we were supposed to do our spring choir and band concert. We had to cancel it because it rained all week, and our parking. The last time it was at Christmas in December, we did our choir. People have to park in the grass. I think afterwards we had about 20 people. We had to go out with a Jeep and pull them out. Anyway, that was going to happen again, which is why that got canceled. There's we cannot do this again. Of course, it destroys the grass and ground everywhere.
It's funny because I looked at the grass the other day when I pulled in to drop the kids off. I was like, that actually looks pretty good over there for what it looked like a few months ago. So.
Yes. Yeah. So we've got some work to do, which right now it's like, do we repair all the grass or do we put in something to provide some more parking?
Right.
So, yeah, our parking is very, it's not adequate for our needs.
So with the new one added, will there be, can you add enough parking over there to kind of help with the lack of parking with what will be the elementary?
That new facility is a really big facility, and there literally would be parking all the way around that facility. And with what we have now, I think it would be adequate.
So I know you're turning away kids right now, which is not ideal by any means. Just because the growth that I see in my kids and just I don't want this to sound like I'm acting like my kids are better, but the amount of people that come up to me is like, holy cow, the way your kids act, which I contribute some of that of having to help grow up and running the business, but also the school, I mean, my stepmom that I don't think has graced church doors in over 30 years, even complimented us for sending our kids to a private school. So that was
yes.
My dad, he used to kind of drive me nuts, but I appreciate it. Every time he would leave a program, he'd give me and Emily a hug, and he's like, thank you so much for investing in my grandkids this much. And I'm like, Dad, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for my kids. But I do appreciate it. But also and correct me if I'm wrong, you're also kind of where there's some homeschooling where people that can come a few days a week and homeschool a few days a week. What's that look like?
There is. Well, one, I want to say, as of right now, we're not turning people away.
Okay.
We usually max out, put people on waiting lists, and we try to get them in over the summer.
Okay.
And another God moment, we just got a whole facility donated to us. We were way over for next year. So you were right. If you were a month ago, I would have said absolutely. There's no way. People just waiting lists. There's no way we can put more people where we're at. God just gave us a whole nother facility in Newcastle. They were closing their door. They donated the whole facility, which is going to open up the opportunity that I'm hoping I'm not going to have to turn people away next year, which is going to, our capability would go up another, probably maybe to 260, 270 for next year while we're building. So that's one thing. And we praise God for that. So back to, what was your question again?
My question is, I believe there's some people that the kids only come a couple days a week, and then they're homeschooled a couple of days a week. Yes.
So what happened is there is our vision at Heartland is we want to partner with parents. That is, we are big at that. I believe God, it's clear in His Word, God gave parents the primary responsibility to train their children. So we want to come alongside and pull. So when it comes to homeschool, there are a lot of people in Indiana. Indiana is very friendly to homeschoolers. Some states aren't. Indiana is. So when we started Heartland, I was like, I do not want to be like, you either come to us or you homeschool. How do we create an umbrella that we could still partner with families who really want to homeschool? So yes, we have had students from the very beginning, homeschool families that come. We don't have a lot. We have a few that come only 1 day a week.
Okay.
They homeschool the rest. They come 1 day a week. And those usually, it's the distance. They're so far away. It might be an hour drive.
Right.
But it gives them a context. They can do band, choir that day. It gives them some of that. Well, what a homeschool co-op would do.
Right. Okay.
We've had more do the 2 day a week or 3 day a week. And that's the same thing, but that's where if they want to be like on a sports team or something like that, they need to be there a minimum of 2 days. You're going to have at least 2 practices a week usually. So, and then of course it's just, and home, that always looks different because my main question when people apply for that is, what is your goal? Like you have a homeschool, like what are you looking at? We do have some criteria, but it's going to be tailored as best we can to the families. How can we meet and work together and partner with you? So anyway.
Yeah, I just, like I said, because we've got some friends at homeschool right up the road, and then part of the co-op that they're part of, I believe some of them kids come to Heartland. And
I've had many start that 2-day program and then they switch to full-time. I've had that happen over and over and over.
It's like,
once they get there, I think a lot of it too is parents, many times when parents do homeschool, it's because, I mean, some it's just, they feel like it's they want to.
Right.
Other times it's a concern about public education, like what's being taught there, or whether it's bullying, how they've been treated, because some are pulling them out. But it's like you want to, you want to work with them as best you can, and the why is always can vary so much based on the family.
Right.
Yeah. So, but we definitely do our best.
And one neat structure about you guys is when they're in their lower grades, they actually only go 4 days a week. You may hear my kids in the background. This was a Friday.
Yes.
They're off.
So K to 4th grade is a 4-day-a-week program. People always say, well, why do you do that? I said, because we're serious about partnering with parents. And I believe strongly that there's a lot of learning children need to do outside of school, outside of the classroom. And it just opens that door for them to spend maybe more time with their parents. It opens that door maybe with their grandparents, put other people in their lives. I mean, it is very valuable, I think. And we meet all the criteria. We still get through the year's work and all of that stuff done. So that has been a very positive thing.
Man, that's really awesome. I'm not looking forward to it when my kids got to go 5 days because we've gotten spoiled with with owning the business. They can come with us, and that's one thing that me and Emily's been very fortunate and blessed at. We do get to spend a lot of time with our kids.
Absolutely.
And I don't take that for granted at all. So, it's actually funny because Rhett has now started asking questions how he can go only 2 days a week and be homeschooled because he loves being at home and around the cows so much that he's like, one time we had the vet coming out to AI, one of his heifers, and it was after school had started. Gotcha. And he's like, Dad, I'm missing so many cool things. Like, how can I still go to Heartland? And I was like, we'll have that conversation at a later date.
There you go. There you go.
Another thing that I like to point out, seniors, that's structured a little different also, right?
It is. It's really, and even like I'm thinking when your boy hits 5th grade, there's ways to where, because you have 2 younger ones and one in 5th grade, so do I make an extra trip, which is a pretty long trip for you, and there's all ways to work with that. But seniors, yes, our goal, of course, is to provide opportunities. So we push really hard. Our whole system of learning is different. Yes. It's just different because it's an individualized approach. Most education is all lockstep. I always tell people it's only in education that I know that we look at children and say, how old are you? And try to put everybody on the same level. It's all 5-year-olds here. It's all 7-year-olds here. Well, my goodness, in your own family, you got 20 kids. They're all different. So our whole approach to education is individualized. So within individualization, it opens up it comes with challenges, but it opens up the opportunity that most of our seniors are already, they have done their work, they have their credits, and usually their senior year, it is more of a part-time thing. Some are doing a lot of dual credit stuff, which they're jumping in the college world. They're already walking into college with a bunch of that already done. Others Maybe they're not wanting to go to college, but they're working. Because we do the Dave Ramsey stuff, which you have helped make that possible at Heartland. And we require that for all seniors. Seniors is when I require it. We have a lot of that training in middle school. We have a lot of that training in other times. But in middle school, it's like, okay, this is a work. Let me get through this and pass my test or whatever. As seniors, those kids are thinking, do I go to a job? Do I go to college? I'm wanting to buy a car. And that's when suddenly it's very relevant. Because Dave Ramsey's how you can pay cash for your car. Oh, you want to go to college? Yes, you're going to college debt-free. Right. That needs to be the priority. So by the way our system works, many of our, even starts sometimes in juniors, it's incentive-based. It's, you reward people who work hard. They're having a job, they're working 2 days a week, or vice versa, and preparing, making the money, doing whatever, so they can actually follow his principles.
Right. So, let's talk a little bit more about the teaching approach, I guess. Kind of what you were saying, like, and why. I know you didn't come up with it, but why? Why when you guys sat down and opened Heartland, like you wanted this approach?
Gotcha. That's probably, if you talk to any teacher who has taught a lot, however big their classroom is, let's say it's even a small classroom size of 15, 20, I don't know it's going to vary wherever you're at. So let's just say 12. The teacher has their lesson plan, they teach their concept. Even with 12, you have 1 or 2 students who have that concept in 10 minutes, and they are bored. And basically, in many ways, you are holding them, they're sitting, waiting. On the other end, out of 10, 12 students, you're going to have 1 or 2 on the other end. They're not getting the concept. They need more one-on-one. Most students are not going to raise their hand in front of all their friends and say, I'm not getting this. Because what are all their friends get? What's wrong with you? And they're definitely not. If they do it once, they probably won't do it twice, 3 times. So and then if you're like in many cases, it's 1 teacher to 30 students. So even if teachers know this, they're falling through the cracks. How do they help?
Right.
So the reason we chose the one-on-one approach is because it deals with that specifically on both ends. Students who get the concept can go. They're not being held back. The ones who need more help are getting help, but it's one-on-one. And it's private. It's not, which forces us to have a low student-teacher ratio. Like in elementary, our ratio is like a 1-to-7, which is really good. I always tell people homeschool has a speed. Like we can't beat that ratio. But as a school, a 1-to-7, 1-to-8 ratio is really good. And even up in high school, we're maybe about 1-to-11, 1-to-12.
Right.
Yeah. Well, so that's one of the reasons on that style. Other reason, of course, we love the Bible approach. God is the center of every class. It's not like we have all our classes and then we have a Bible class over here. We sprinkle Jesus on top of, no, it's like God and his truth is the foundation to everything. That was personally really important to me. So when we study science, math, whatever, God's the foundation. He's the centerpiece. I don't want to ignore God, and I don't want to ignore. How do you handle if your kids ignore you? I always tell people, like, if my kids are ignoring me, we're going to have a talk. If I tell them to do something, they just act like I don't exist. But in education, unfortunately, we have done that.
Right.
And with the creator of the universe. And the #1 bestseller every single year, you would think from an educational viewpoint, why would you not look at the #1 bestseller every year? Right. But that's the one that is surgically removed. So that would be another thing. I love the approach of that. I love the individualized approach. I love the mastery-based learning approach. Every like 2 to 3 weeks, they will take a test over that section of material. If they make below an 80%, this is all the way up through high school. If you make below an 80%, you don't move on. You stop. You redo that section to make sure you master it before you move on, which makes sense, especially like in math.
Right.
And even some of your English grammar. I understand history could move around.
Right.
But I love the mastery-based approach. And then the last thing, I love the goal-setting approach. Which I know in a company, how do you accomplish big goals?
Right.
They have to be broken down into daily goals. And that's what we're teaching. It starts in first grade. We start teaching them how to set daily goals. So every day they have to set daily goals. Okay, I need to get my year's work done. How can I break this down into daily goals? Which goes into, people want to come. They want to work 1 day a week and do 5. I'm like, okay, you got this much work to do. That's typically 5 days worth. Can you put that into daily goals and do 5 days in 4 days?
Right.
And kids are like, oh, yeah. And we help them. And then suddenly they're like, and that sets them up for life.
Right.
I always say, how do you eat an elephant?
Right. One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. So anyway, those are different things why we chose this.
No, and I mean, God rest his soul, Nick Fiano.
Yes.
Good friend we lost about a year ago now, but he told me about Heartland and told me about Heartland and told me about Heartland. And, that was that was like one of his big selling points to me was like, he's like, they're setting them up to be business owners or very high performers in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And, and I love a lot of public school teachers that I know. I've had some on the podcast, and this isn't bash the public school system.
Sure.
The sad thing is the amount of people leaving the public school system because they're frustrated and I've seen some good ones leave to go home to homeschool their own kids. And, that's, and then I've got to unwire the people that I hire that went to public schools. You know what I mean? It's like, and, so, I mean, to me, it was like, I've said this a million times, like my kids will go to Heartland. Like they love it. I mean, Red every once in a while, he's a boy, he's like, you know, you want to go back to school, especially their spring breaks next week. Following week, I don't know how excited he'll be a bit to go back to school, but he genuinely loves school. All 3 kids do well. We appreciate it,
awesome.
for everybody in the school system that, that puts the work in and, their sacrifice.
Yes,
so
it is. And they do. There's sacrifice on parents because there's something you pay for that to happen. Yep. But there's also the sacrifice on the teachers. They work for, most of my teachers could make more money elsewhere.
Right.
And I mean, they all could.
Right.
And they choose to sacrifice so that they can have the freedom. Mainly, it's amazing the freedom to pray with students when they need it. I had a teacher not too long. She's actually applying. She's taught for years. And that's where I started. I started in the public school system. So I've been in that system. And she's like, the hardest thing for me, I'm a believer. I had many people tell me this. I'm a believer, I'm a Christian, and kids are struggling with this or that or whatever, and I can't tell them what they need. I can't tell them about God. I can't point them to the truth. They're struggling with who they are, their purpose in life, and I'm not even supposed to tell them that, you're not an accident.
Right.
You're not just a collision of molecules that exploded and somehow we're here by chance. Like, you were created on purpose, for purpose. There's a God who loves you. There's a God who can redeem your life and he can transform you and be able to sit down and pray. They're like, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. And in a meeting, when they're asking, like, where did I come from? And all their textbooks are saying you evolved.
Right.
So there is a unique, people tell me all this time, they walk through Heartland, they walk into that gym, because right now you walk into the gym, and they say the atmosphere is different.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
And it is. There is a different atmosphere, and I always tell people it's a simple answer, really. It's God.
Yeah.
We welcome the creative universe. Like, we invite him every day. We're going to start every day off with prayer. I walk through the high school and kids are struggling, or I can just tell. I'll right there, I'll drop down and pray with them. Right. And we can't. Life was not made to do without God.
Yeah, like you guys have chapel every Wednesday morning.
Yes.
And my kids come anything, they will not be late on Wednesday. And it's funny because the running joke in our house is Dad gets us to school early, Mom gets us to school on time, or maybe a little late. We won't say that real loud because I'll get in trouble later. Okay. But let's
not talk about that.
Yeah, but it's just funny because and also I try to be there early. I try to be one of the first ones in line to pick them up, and they used to say they knew who was picking them up when their name got called because they knew it was either dad or mom, but I mean,
based on the time.
Yes. Yeah. But I mean, like, genuinely, like, our kids, they love it there. Of course, they come home like, hey, like, one of them came home a year or two ago and was like, hey, this person's being mean. Well, me and Emily knew that the parents were going through a divorce.
Yep.
So we're just like, love them. Like, that's what, we didn't say, hey, I'm just like, just, you're called to love them, Reagan's my little Spitfire kid, we've kind of had to, focus. She gets angry, or however you want to say that, when she doesn't get her way, when she's told people that I don't like you, and it's like, Reagan, like, we can't do this. But once again, she's 8 now. She was 6 or 7. Like, she's got to learn to control her emotions.
She does.
There's adults that can't control their emotions.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah.
Absolutely. And there is, and I mean, students are students.
Yeah.
Just because you go to a Christian school doesn't mean everybody's perfect. They're growing. I do believe that how we handle it if a major system comes back to us, it is always dealt with. Like, it is always, and we don't deal that without the parents. We bring the parents into that picture, and it's just amazing watching conflict resolution happen when it is done with the goal of honoring God ultimately, but also in working with parents.
Well, so when Reagan first started in kindergarten, it was, I think, the 4th day of school, and I was picking him up, and teacher walks her out, and I'm like, this is not good. And, we had a conversation. She was struggling with getting, controlling her emotions, and teacher's like, if this happens again, I'm going to have to call her mom, and you have to come and get her. Like, we're loving her.
Yes.
However,
Yes.
And then I turned around and I said, no, you call me.
There you go.
And, that helped, that helped kind of have Reagan, dad's coming.
Oh, yes.
And I may or may not threaten to whoop her butt in front of her whole class if I had to show up. I actually gave her teacher permission to whip her butt. And needless to say, we haven't had any very few little problems with Reagan since. So I finally asked her a couple months later, I'm like, Reagan, like, why? She's like, I didn't want you to whip my butt in front of all my friends. So, but no, I mean, it was, I appreciated the way it was handled. I know my kids' personalities are all different, and I don't want to tame Reagan. No. Like, she's got a fire and desire in her. And Miss Missy are both of their teachers technically this year. And I'm thankful for all the teachers, but I think she's been amazing with Reagan,
That's awesome.
And she even said that. She's like, we don't need to dash water on this. We just need to figure out how we can
help
make this
control it.
Yes, make this a win-win for everybody, because she does have a massive, huge heart. Like, she's very motherly already, very loving. She loves every animal.
Yes.
Every animal in the world she thinks is cute. Absolutely.
So, and those are God instilled opportunities.
Right.
Yeah.
And like you said, like, to think that everybody's created for a purpose, and like for them kids, they hear that, they got to hear it at school. But I even try to do a decent job at it as a dad of telling them also, just because.
Yeah. The goal of the school should not be to replace the parent.
Right.
That is 100% not the goal.
Right.
We need to work together. And that is the beauty of Heartland. Like, we are very, if there are issues, I'm like, have we talked to the parents?
Yep.
We're bringing this in. Of course, and even on discipline issues, you can discipline to a point at school.
Right.
But even then, I'm like, I'm not here to replace the parent. There are times I'll call a parent and say, hey, I need your help. I need you to come pick up your child. I need you to be the parent. This is what's going on.
Yep.
And he or she needs to know this is what's going on, and we need some help here.
Right.
And it works very well. But then also with parents, when they're pulling, I guess that's the goal. I want to pull in the same direction I believe most parents want to pull. I tend, once again, I'm not trying to bash public schools, but I am trying to be real here. I tend to call them government schools more than public schools.
Yep.
Because most of the public I know, even friends or whatever who send their kids to public school, they are not for what's being taught and what's being done. Especially if you go to the LGBT plus community, which even our election, if anything, it proved most people are not cool with guys going to girls' restrooms who say or playing on sports or whatever. I mean, if anything, the election's kind of screamed, it's like, that's not appropriate, and the community's not for that.
Yep.
But also so many values. It's like we want to reinforce, hopefully, what's being taught at home. Honesty, responsibility, individual responsibility. Like, I can't control what other people do, but I can control me. And ultimately, my response, and that's what we're trying to teach kids. Like, you can control you.
Right.
You can be honest. You can be respectful. You can be obedient. You can be diligent. Those are all character traits. And when they get in life, when they apply for a job, I would say even you, when you apply for a job, you can find people. If you find somebody they have all the right test scores and they have all the knowledge and the skills, but they don't have the character, you're probably not going to hire them.
Right.
If they won't show up, if they're not dependable, if they're not honest, it's like, okay, you might know how to do roofing, but I can't use you. Right. And that's what we're trying to get to our students. The most important part is the character development. Test scores and all that, to me, are a byproduct of good character. But it shouldn't be the focus. Focus is raising people who are honest, truthfully, will treat others the way they want to be treated, see others as God's kids. And so it's a different focus for sure, but it does really make a difference in lives when family, school, and I like to say church, because a lot of our families are going to church. So when those three things are pulling in the same direction, I think in Ecclesiastes says it's a threefold cord is not easily broken.
Well, and like what I love is like asking the kids, like they can requote scripture.
Yes.
And just that they're putting that in their mind. And
yes.
We're them crazy parents that I think if you gave my kids a tablet right now, I don't even know if they would really know how to use it. They'll grab our phone sometimes and make goofy videos and take goofy pictures. But like literally last night, Reagan grabbed the little bucket and they went frog hunting out in the creek, out in the water, because water's standing everywhere, but just to see them brought up, like not around that. And like one thing that Dave Ramsey always said was like, straight A plus students, that doesn't necessarily correlate in the real world of like being successful.
You're right.
Like, I was a high C, low B student, and especially entrepreneurs on top of that. A lot of them were C's and D's.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Because our minds are,
they're thinking different.
And it would be interesting to look at like kids coming out of like a private Christian school, because like my kids do really good grade wise right now. Right. And they are responsible. They do have chores, to do at home. And, but what I always love is asking them. And then, when they're misbehaving, I'm like, have they talked about obeying your father and your mother lately? And, the kids are like, they kind of hang their head, so they're phenomenal kids. Like I appreciate, they're great kids, so they're still kids.
Right. Absolutely.
Still days that
and they'll go the way of least resistance.
Yes. Yep.
That's why the standard has to be held.
Yep.
As parents, I always tell parents, just be encouraged. There are no perfect kids out there, and if you figure out how to have perfect kids, you should go write a book about it or something. Right. I said there's going to be ups and downs, but if you can be consistent in your parenting, I challenge parents. Do you remember the old etch and sketch boards? You draw the lines and then you would shake it and they all disappear. I said too many times as parents we're etch a sketch parenting. We draw our lines. and then we get tired, or life shakes it up and it becomes very inconsistent.
Yep.
So, if anything, I would say is just as parenting, be consistent. If you're going to say something's going to happen, then follow through and make it happen.
Yep.
And that way, kids know where their boundaries are. And yeah.
Well, and it's really no different than even in business, like setting expectations.
Absolutely.
And what I've found with the kind of team members that I want, Dave Ramsey just shared this clip. An employee comes in late, doesn't really work when they're here.
Yeah.
Is on Facebook all day.
Right.
A team member adds value, but I've even learned, struggling as a business owner, like not setting clear expectations.
Yes.
And then once you get them clear expectations set, and if they're a true team member, they will hold themselves accountable.
Absolutely.
Adam behind the camera here, we just started a new marketing. We're shifting some of our marketing, and he's Adam's Mr. Check the box. Like if he's giving these 12 tasks, he's checking them freaking 12 tasks off, and got a lot of praise from the group we're working with on that today. So, that was nice. And, I've even heard, and there is a lot of truth, like kids want, they do want held accountable. I know kids say they don't, but that's when they know that they're truly loved.
Yes. Well, and with boundaries, it's great to have good relationships.
Yep.
But the boundaries need to be clear. And like what you're saying in everything, which that's one thing I do like even about our whole system of schooling. It's very, very clear. They're setting daily goals. This is what gets done. And then there's an instant action reaction. So if they get this done, they can have no homework that night. What they don't get done instantly goes to homework. So if you want to go and waste time and drag your feet, not be a diligent worker.
Yep.
Now you have all this homework. Because what we're trying to do, we're trying to develop those skills. Kids are like wet concrete.
Yep.
What they're developing now is going to follow them the rest of their life. So when they're young, if they can develop a work ethic, man, that's going to take them in life. Which, again, Heartland, what I love is we still do recess every morning. I let kids, they go and they run like crazy. And there's incentives on that. They can get so much time, but through incentives, they can get more time.
Yep.
At lunch, they're going to eat and they're going to go out to the gym. Once it's nice, we have a playground, run like crazy. And then afternoon, we turn around and do it again.
Right.
And that goes all the way through high school.
Yep.
Because I think there's value, especially in, I say boys, but I think I'm right there, especially in boys.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, we need to run.
Yes.
We need to move. We need to let that energy out, especially when you're just sitting. I don't know. I have a hard time sitting, and I'm in my 40s.
Yeah. Well, and I
like
mean,
be
and
active.
That's especially like you said, especially with the boys, you can't put them in a box, you know. And it's so funny because Rhett, those first couple of years, the teachers are like, he's the most quiet boy I've ever been around. You get him in that truck and that light switch switches, and I mean, he's running and screaming through the office. And they were in here the other night. Emily picked him up and came back in here, and we were on a call, and I was like, guys, go out to the shop.
Yes.
Like, you're
go
loud.
run somewhere else.
And I want him, I love it. Like, when we moved into our house, I don't think we had a TV up for almost 6 months.
Yeah.
Like, we moved in May, so the weather was nice, and they are outside. Like, they'll go outside, even in the barn with the show calves and stuff this winter when it was, I mean, there was times I went out and I'm like, get in the house.
Yes.
Like, it's 3 degrees out. We've been outside for 45 minutes.
Right.
Like,
we got to go.
No, I want to play. And I'm like, it's too cold to play out here.
Yes.
But but that's what we need, not shove them in a room, shove headphones, shove a computer in front of them,
in 2018, which is old, they were saying the average time, and this would be more teenagers, 9 hours they're on a device. Right. 9 hours a day they're watching something.
Yep.
Which, of course, we grew up, we didn't even have that. We didn't even have that. But I do think there's so much value in students not being on technology all the time.
Right.
Which I know nowadays it seems like everything is going to the cloud. Which I know at Heartland we're still almost all of our curriculum is all hard copy.
Yep.
people say, why do you do that? I'm like, because I want parents to know what's being taught.
Right.
And when everything's in the cloud, how do you even know?
Right.
It's really hard to know. And they're like, well, are you worried about the kids not knowing how to navigate technology? And I'm like, no, I'm really not.
Right.
I said, kids they know more about, when they get their phones, it's like they know more about it than their parents in like a year.
Right.
Or probably 3 months. It's just like,
well,
they're indoctrinated with it.
And me and Emily try to go and talk to the classes that we sponsor. We've done a bad job about not coming to Heartland. But like, especially in the public school system, and, and the teacher is always like, hey, give them the secret sauce. And I'm like, quit doing this.
Yes.
Look somebody in the eyes.
Yes. Shake
their hand.
Absolutely.
And I was like, show up and actually work when you're at work.
Yeah.
I was like, literally, you've beat 98% of your competition out by just doing that. And I kind of hate it, because I really do feel like the standard is getting lower and lower.
It is.
And like, it's, and when you do show up and do that kind of stuff, like you're
cream to the top.
Yeah.
I'm watching it with both of my boys.
Yep.
Both of my boys. Conrad just turned 20. Reagan is almost, they're college.
Yep.
But, the jobs they get, the amount of money they're starting to make, people are, and it's that they have that right there.
Right.
They have a work ethic that they developed when they were young.
Yep.
Within the system, of course, family too. It's not just a school.
Yes.
School is not a magic recipe by itself. It takes the family and the school, I think, working together. But so many. But they will, and everywhere I go, I'll go to Cincinnati, and people walk up and say, your son, Conrad, oh my goodness. Everybody tells me about him. Yep. And a lot of it is just he sees people. He values people. They're going to walk in and shake your hand. They're going to talk to people. A job to do, they're going to do it. And then if the job is done, they're not going to sit and do nothing, waiting for the next assignment. They're going to be like, okay, what can I do? What can I do? Okay. They're self-starters.
Yep.
And that is they're amazing employees.
Yep.
But those type of people usually don't always stay employees. They usually go out and start something.
Right. Or run a big branch, or, run a big, Yeah. Yeah. I've got a young kid that I've mentored. He's worked with me and around me for 6-7 years now. And he's sharp, but there's a trust there that I've built, where, I can have some hard conversations, with him, and he knows it comes out of love. And every once in a while he'll call me, hey, I need business advice.
Yes.
I'm like, all right,
here it is
coming unfiltered.
Yes.
I love you, right? Yes. So
absolutely.
But as we wrap up here, I'm going to let you give a plug of, like, if anybody feels led to donate, how they can donate to the building, because we didn't even really talk about any of the fundraising. I know there's a lot of money to be raised there. And if anybody has any questions, reach out to you.
Yeah. So we have our website is www.heartlandchristianeducation.com. I guess I don't need the www. Yeah. But anyway, heartlandchristianeducation.com. On there, there's a lot of stuff about a lot of things, but one of that is a way to donate right on our website. We have just if you're wanting to even look at it, because like I said, we don't advertise. We've hardly ever advertised for Heartland. We do have a Facebook page. We have an Instagram page, and you can search us on those, and you could see more about Heartland. You can see our core values. You can see what's going on. Just a lot of cool stuff like that. But probably the number one way would be to donate, if you're just wanting to do it online, is through the webpage.
Okay.
If you ever wanted to come see the place, because I tell people a lot, it's like we're different. We're just, our whole system of education is a different approach. And like with anything, there's pros and cons to anything. But we do luncheons at Heartland. You could come to Heartland. You would get a free meal, and it's a great meal. We have people who cater in. It's a great meal, and you get a tour of the school and a little bit more about the history and what God's done for us. And anybody who wants to come to that would be amazing. I got Eric Heimlich is our donor development, and I think. And Casey Knight.
Yep.
I have a business card for Eric who you could call, and I don't know, 317-331-0119, or just call Heartland Christian. And if you're interested in any of that. So
leave us some words of encouragement, or
sure,
we'll just let you do that.
Probably the words I would think is just remembering as parents. Okay, there's no thing in your life that's more important than our kids and our grandkids. So I don't know who all I'm talking to. Our kids and they are our most valuable possession. And in that training process, God has equipped you and me, all of us, whoever has kids, God has called us to raise them. And in that, I always challenge people that truth matters. Truth matters. The ideas that our young people are getting, whether it's through schooling, through media, through home, those ideas will have consequences. Good ideas have good consequences. Bad ideas have victims. And then the children are our future. There's no greater investment than investing in the next generation. So that would probably be my challenge, is just as parents, let's don't get distracted by whatever in life pulls us, whether it's a money, job, whatever. Our greatest possession are our kids. So
I appreciate you, Mr. Scott. Thank you guys for tuning in to this edition of the Whole Truth Podcast. Thank you.